One of the best things about what we do is when you guys who are new readers ask us questions about where to start reading comics. I feel like we encounter new readers every single week on the channel, and we want to make sure that we are doing our absolute best to help you in your early comics journey. I think it's so much fun to be in that first 6 months, first year, first 2 years, and I think that we can help guide you with some helpful tips on where to start your comics journey. This is going to be the first in a series of videos we'll do like this to help you get into characters you love and, find your home in comics. My first tip as far as getting into comics is to figure out what characters you like. If you want to read comics, it's highly likely you're inspired by some superhero media you saw. Maybe it was a movie, whatever it was. Chances are that's what's inspiring you. Lead into that. Lean into that. If it's Spider-Man, there are plenty of great Spider-Man comics that you can read that have been, celebrated. You can use the internet to your advantage to figure out what character and then what books make the most sense for you.
A lot of the media, if you're not a comic book reader, a lot of the media that you've watched or played, is inspired by these comics. So like these, if you really like, oh, that Netflix Daredevil show, I'm really excited for Born Again to come out. There's a book called Daredevil Born Again. That'd be a great spot
Literally.
for you to read comics. And then from there, it opens up a branching effect. You start, branching out even by characters. You'd be like, oh, Electro was really cool in this. Maybe I'll read an Electro book. There's one by Frank Miller, also great. So yeah, really hone in on who the characters are that you like, and you'll be able to find stuff. Unless you're like I don't know, like a Sideways fan all of a sudden. But then I would not know how you became one outside of comics.
Just picked up a random book off the shelf.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, and as you continue to explore that, right, the characters, because the universes are so connected, the characters interact with each other so often. Find a cool dynamic as well. There's a lot of team books. There's a lot of interesting relationships where people bounce off more than others. People butt heads. What kind of tension are you looking for in a book? And you can probably also find that in a team dynamic. So I think that's also another way to explore is look for the characters. What team do they belong to, and then take a dive into that. Maybe they're part of the Avengers. Maybe they're part of the X-Men, and how do they interact with those other characters? And do you find new characters from that?
That Avengers family tree is never ending.
It's
Yeah,
they're all there.
yeah.
The next question I think you need to answer is how are you going to read comics? You know, Comic books are a physical medium, but they're also a digital medium. And there are advantages and disadvantages to both. You might want to, have a massive collection of physical comics, and that might sound amazing to you. But speaking as somebody who is 20 years down the road from making that decision, there are things you have to think about, like storage and where you're going to put this stuff, that are very real factors. So, whether you become a weekly Wednesday warrior like myself, where you go to the shop and you're buying comics every week, or maybe you decide that you're going to read comics digitally through, you know, be it Marvel Unlimited or DC Infinite, which are two different streaming apps which allow you to read both of what the publishers have to offer. Um, those are possibilities. You could also go the road of collecting bigger editions, be it a trade, an omnibus. However, you collect your comics, you have to figure out whether you want a hefty physical collection or a more lightweight digital one.
And if you do want a physical collection, use something like My Comic Shop Locator. That is a website you can go to, type in your zip code, and within the U.S., it'll tell you the nearest comic book shops to you that are at least officially registered on the site. Which I think, if you're a comic book shop, you're on there. That way, you can at least see like, oh, is there a comic book store near me? Because if there's not, that's not to say you can't collect physically, but you might need to start ordering online. Then you got to worry about that and shipping and all that. So really do your research on like how you want to do these things. Because digital, it's like, oh, you have a Kindle, you have an iPad, you can start right now.
Push of a button makes it easy. There's some subscription services. I think the other thing there is if you do want print, check out your local library. They are always a great resource, especially if you're strapped for cash. Comics very quickly get expensive, especially for bigger books, for long series. Check where you potentially have access to other things. And ideally they have, you know, the first volume, the first trade of something to just dip your toe in. If it interests you, then cool, pick that up and then decide, actually, I want this for myself, get your own, or continue the series from there. It's a great way to also just test things at a very low risk.
And I think physical and digital are not mutually exclusive either. I'm essentially a hybrid. You are too, Marco.
Yeah.
Um, where like my weekly comics are read digitally, but you can even see it behind me. Like I have bookshelves, multiples, packed to the brim with comics, trades, a lot of omnibuy. I think in terms of physically collected, I like the shelf look of an omnibus, nice and thick. I already put mine away. And even something as small as like a DC Compact, I have various versions of them because I like to see them and I like to be able to go back on them and read them physically.
Okay. That's how you get them sometimes.
So you have figured out how you're going to read comics. You figured out what characters you want to read about, and you've done that. Congrats. What do you do next? So the next step is to figure out who the writers are. Who are the artists that you really like from what you've decided to read, and read more of what they do. I think it's a lot it'll be a lot more fruitful for you to follow creators whose storytelling style, be it art or writing, you prefer, because you will have a smoother experience than just trying to choose from a variety of, say, Spider-Man stories, because every writer has their own style, their own sensibility. Every artist is going to draw Spider-Man their own way, and you're going to need to figure out which way works best for you and follow down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, for example, for me, I went to a comic book shop and I picked up Thunderbolts by Warren Ellis. I forget who. I think it was Diodato on interiors and Marco Djurjevic on covers. And I picked this up just by cover alone. I thought the art was freaking awesome. I don't know who Radioactive Man is. I don't know who Songbird was at the time, but now that I've recognized, oh, this cover artist is insane. I love his work. I started picking up Thor by JMS and Olivier Coipel because Derjovic was also on covers there. So that was leading me by creators to other books. And then writer wise, I was like, oh, this Warren Ellis guy, what else has he written? That's how I got into Next Wave, by Marvel. Another book that was already done by the time I started comics. So I was able to go use archaeology to go back and read that. And then from there, I got Stuart Immonen. It's again a branching path. Find who you like and just follow them. Artist, writer, even like colorist you can do too. So many good Jordi Belair books out there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think just to round that out, the you don't even have to stay within the world of superheroes at that point. Once you start following a writer or an artist, you start to realize, oh, there are, I think it's more palpable risk. You can take a risk because you know it's a creator that you've enjoyed within the realm of these characters, within the realm of the this part of the industry, and then decide, oh, actually, hold on, this Rick Remender guy is not too bad. They wrote these other books. Hey, let me check it out. I'm not familiar with this image thing, or oh, this person wrote something for Mad Cave, for Black Mask. I've never heard of these publishers, but you know what? I think I trust this creator enough to be able to say I'll give it a shot and give it grace.
For me, it was like, oh, I like this Ant-Man book. Who's this Robert Kirkman fella?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Kirkman, of course, the creator of Invincible and The Walking Dead. So I think to that point, Marco, you can also choose genres that work for you. It can be intimidating to, especially if you start by reading Marvel and DC, it can be intimidating to jump out of that pool. But if you know that you really, really like action adventure stories starring superheroes, then maybe something like Robert Kirkman's Invincible is for you. If you know that you really, really love, crime, mystery type stories like you may have found in Daredevil, then Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' Criminal might be for you, or some of their, collaborations over the years. So there are a lot of ways that you can approach it. I think that you know yourself best, you know your tastes best. And if you take what we've said so far and follow those steps, I think you'll end up in a place where you're pretty happy with your experience in comics. And I think it's easier, it might be easier to fall into comics than any other form of entertainment other than music, because it's so easy to choose a writer, read their work, read more of their work, download it. It's like it's just an easy path. Just follow it.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of resources out there too. I think like League of Comic Geeks, a website where if any movie buffs who like Letterbox, it's probably similar to that, where you can kind of log everything you've read,
Mm.
and then just click on creator. You can find out the creators who were in that. You can click on them and see all their works, and then you could also have comments on that. You could meet people through that and have a community thing. I think community is a big part of reading comics too that people don't really recognize before they get into the medium.
And speaking of community, you should join our Discord server. There is a link to it in the description of this video. Leave a comment with any other helpful tips that you might have if you're a longtime reader, or if you're a new reader and you've got questions. Please feel free to shoot them our way. We will be doing more videos like this as long as you guys support it for our new readers who are looking to get into certain characters. We have got you covered. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you in the next one. Until then, take care, guys.
On to the next book.